So friendships, they don't go away. You don't lose your friends, but friendships definitely change. Grief affects friendships and they don't look like they used to. First of all, Michael was such an extrovert. I mean, there were kids over here. I mean, 5 kids is a lot, but that wasn't enough. I mean, we had cousins over all the time. There'd be 5 cousins. There'd be girls' nights. There'd be boys' nights. There'd be, 12 boys out in the front yard playing baseball or soccer. And so we'd have the whole team over. Or, one time she says, "Hey, we haven't had company for a while. Can we have company?" I'm like, "Sure. Who you want to invite?" She said, "Well, let's just invite everybody." I was like,
Everybody.
"What? What does that mean?" And of course, when you have a large family, you connect with lots of other large families. And so she was like, "Everybody, let's invite like several of the neighborhood families and, some of my homeschool friends." And I think we had like 40 people over one time. And I was like, I don't even know what to do with this. I felt like just lost.
That's awesome.
There was just a ton of people everywhere. And to watch my wife in those moments, like she is lit, like she's having the time of her life. She just loves people. And to have a house full and kids just running everywhere and in the basement and outside. And, that's how she operated. Like she just had first of all, she had the energy to do it and she could take over a room and just make it a blast. So imagine going from that kind of environment to Michael's gone. And I don't know what to do with that. Like we have kids over. This Tuesday night thing's been good because, the boys are having these guys over and there's friends and stuff here. But I haven't had a social time yet at the house where I've invited all the friends and stuff over. I've thought about it, but then of course I beat myself up like Michael's not here. Like I'm not Michael. Like I can be okay fun and I can have friends over, but is that weird for them? Are they just doing this because, you know what I mean? Everything's different.
To your point, you're missing the aspects of everyday Michael.
Yeah.
And now your friends and your community, and they're missing the 40 people over. They're missing the energy she brought.
Yeah.
They're missing, like, that season has come to an end.
Right. Stinks.
And that's hard.
Grief affects everybody. It changes everything. And then friends, I hate being a third wheel. Hate it. Back to the whole singleness part. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I've got some good friends that it's not a big deal. I know that doesn't affect them, but it still affects me. You know what I mean? So friendships, they don't go away. You don't lose your friends, but friendships definitely change. Grief affects friendships and the fact that they don't look like they used to. And so I'm working through that now. Like, what does that mean? And I don't know.
I'll give you an interesting perspective from an outsider within grief. You, as the person who has gone through this deep grief, and me as a friend, there's this natural inclination as a friend to be like, are our conversations going to change? Is our relationship going to change? Because, is he going to want to laugh? Is he going to want to talk sports? Sure. Is he always going to want to have these deep moments of depth about his wife? Or is he just going to come over and chill? Like, what do I do with that? And I'll never forget, again, back to my buddy who lost his kid. He's a big Michigan fan like you and I. Go Blue, right?
Go Blue.
And big Michigan fan. And it wasn't like a couple months after he lost his son. They were over at our house. We were watching a Michigan game. And I remember him standing there and he was like really pumped about the game. And we were like crushing Minnesota or something like that. And I just was looking at him and I was like, how is he compartmentalizing that his son's not here?
Yeah.
And just enjoying life because life goes on.
Yeah.
But from my perspective, I'm like, okay, yeah. We'll cheer together.
That's a good perspective.
But it's awkward.
Yeah. No. The awkward thing. I was talking with somebody just the other day of grief causes so much awkwardness in how you start a conversation, how you develop a conversation. I get it. I feel the awkwardness when people approach and talk to me, even friends. They don't quite know what to say or how to say it. And the kids, especially, the kids feel that awkwardness. Like adults will say really weird things to the kids. Like, yeah, I love it that they will say things like, your mom will be so proud of you. You're growing up to be such a great. And at some point, one of the kids was like, why can't they just recognize me for me? Why they got to like talk about mom? Like, why? Doesn't make sense.
Wow.
To them, the kids, they're feeling that. I don't want to put any of the kids on the spot because I haven't asked permission to tell these stories, but there's some really awkward conversations that have happened, especially with the older kids, that they'll come home and be like, you're not going to believe what so-and-so said. And I'm like, well, give them a little grace. They're still trying to figure out, but grief affects all relationships and creates a lot of awkwardness. And I'm learning to run with the awkward and just, I found the funniest reel. I'm going to send it to you. I might have. You might have to you might have to find something to do with it because it's hilarious because it's about it's two girls saying we're grievers. And yeah, it's always going to be awkward around us. And yeah, we're grievers and we're going to make you uncomfortable. And yeah, we're grievers. And it just goes on and on and on. It's hilarious. And I'm like, that's funny because they're making light of real serious, but real stuff. Like, we're grievers. You're going to be afraid to ask us a question like that ever again.
Right.
Like, we're grievers. You're going to wish you'd never asked about how many kids are in our family. I was dying, because it's all the awkward things that people say, and they were making light of it. And I was like, that's hilarious. Sure. Now, some people out there are like, Curtis, that's awful. Why would you make fun of that? Because it's our life. It's my life. Yeah. It's literally the awkwardness that I have to live in every single day. Grief affects everyone.
That's really good. And on the topic of awkwardness, like, we want to know.
Yeah.
The Chris's of the world want to know, when I invite you over and you're like, hey, what can I bring? Am I just like, yeah, just bring whatever, and then you show up and we have the normal interaction, and like, what do we do with that?
Sure.
As people who know you're grieving, like, do we just allow life to move on? Do we read you? Do we not read you? Do we just chill? Like, what do we do?
Be awkward together. I think as time goes on, you especially right after the tragedy, the trauma, like, that's such a hard time. Nobody knows what to do. They really don't. But as time goes on, just learning the person, if you're friends with them, you know enough about them. Like if you were friends with Michael, there's certain things that we make fun of her on and have fun and tell jokes about all the time. One of the funniest things that happened was when the kids went back to school. They said, hey, is it bad if we still tell mom jokes? Because in our household, we would tell mom jokes all the time. It was just something we did. Of course, Michael would get mad, but then she would laugh. And anyways, it was this whole thing. It was just what we did. And I was like, yeah, we can tell mom, and we still do. Somebody will say something. I'll be like, well, your mom, or whatever like that. And they'll be like, well, your mom. And anyways, we still tell mom jokes. Anyways, one of the kids told a mom joke in a class, and it really offended the teacher. I cracked up laughing. They're like, you can't do that. That's so wrong. And they came home and told me. I was like, it's fine. You'll be all right.
That's hilarious. But is it fair to say that these kids are becoming way more emotionally bulletproof?
In some ways,
I mean, they've gone through the hardest of the hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, like you said, they're pulling all the, humor from this and awkwardness and embracing that awkwardness. And we're saying grief affects more than just you. I bet you these kids are going to be the best spouse to somebody someday because of what they've gone through, because of the hard that God's allowed in their life.
Man, I hope so.
They have no choice.
Yeah, I hope so. The patience, the gentleness, the understanding, man, I hope so. That would be pretty impressive. Yeah.